And then he reaches over, and I'm in my head, I'm like, what is happening? And I could wait, like full blown, like just, and I was like, and I was like appalled. I was like, what are you doing? And he's like, your eyebrows are so shiny. And I was like, because I think we all go through a season in our lives where we just miss it. We start to wonder, like, okay, why do I do what I do? And when you go through something like that, that trauma does something in your identity, that you start to become self-aware of how life in a split second
can
changes you, and
it's so fragile.
Your mind's, and it's very fragile. To where I had to sit back and I had to tell myself, okay, you can either choose to be a victim or a victor. There's two V's. Which path will you take? You know, I tell them, I do a text to self-connection is what I call it. Right. And I tell them my story. And a lot of my students are like, Ms.K, I would never think that happened to you. I was like, most victims don't look like what happened to them. And that's why you have to respect other people's identity and their walk and what you say and even your actions towards them, because you don't know their story.
All right, welcome back to FUNDAY Chat. My name is Wade. I am the host of this program, and today we are continuing our second episode with none other but Ms.K. And now Ms.K, as we have mentioned in the first episode, if you've watched that, you know that she's a teacher, an educator here in Taiwan in an international school at Kang, Chiao. Our connection, again, goes back through SALT, and so very happy to have you here today. And on the second episode, I would like to touch more about our identity aspect. And I believe if people have watched the first one, they would recognize that, you know, I think you have I wouldn't say a confusing identity, but just a lot of parts that you've played throughout your life to get to where you are right now. Yeah, so there's a lot of things that brought you to where you are. And so today we are very grateful to be able to kind of dive a little deeper, talk a little more, and figure out identity things. Because I think just hearing again from that first episode, I can really sense that your story is very motivating for so many individuals. And I know that even as we talked off camera, like particularly for the marginalized is sort of the people group that you would like to reach and touch. And, you know, coming from that background, I'm sure, you know, it's even more meaningful to you. So let's start with an icebreaker. And again, since you're a teacher, I had the icebreaker here to ask you, so if you had to teach a class or something completely random, besides obviously the education aspect, what would you teach? Dance and cooking. I love this. That's my de-stressors. I can dance. Yes. So I danced for over 20 years. I know you just told me that, which is crazy. I danced for over 20 years. What kind of dance? Everything from Afro beats to hip hop to R&B. Wow. I did everything. We were part of the YMCA, and we were called the Miami Heat Junior Dancers. So it was a Homestead chapter. We also danced because my uncle owned a radio show called Radio RCH. So we used to do Haitian Youth Time, and to promote it, we did Caribbean style, African style dancing. And so I just loved it. But they said I started dancing as young as like 4 or 5 years old. Like I saw my aunts dancing, and then I just joined and started moving. So it was always a talent of mine that it just came natural. Yeah. And then my mom is a fiend for like the kitchen. So one of the things is like we had to like literally be in the kitchen Thanksgiving like 2 days early. Like she taught us how to season everything. I was the tester for a long time, just testing out the seasoning. I like being the tester. Yeah. I'm there for it. But by way of I'm an observer and visual learner, so I learned things. So when I do cook like potluck for our church, and they're like, "Oh, this is amazing." I was like, "My mama did it. My mama raised this. Mama's cooking. I'll be dancing and cooking at the same time." Yeah, that sounds like a good combo. Yeah, there's something about dancing that it does bring people together. Yeah, food and dancing does bring people together. Those are good combos. Well, okay, so like I mentioned, we're talking about identity today, and obviously when I had approached you, I think this was a topic that was close to your heart, that you felt like it's something that you want to share, and so I appreciate, you know, the opportunity to kind of discuss this with you. But I think, like, of course, every single person has an idea of what identity means. But what would be your definition of identity? I remember before going off to China, my pastor approached me to check my identity. Okay. Because he knew he's a missionary. Yes. So he had traveled around Asia, and actually Asia and Europe were his mission bases, and he knew I was gonna be culture shocked and thrown aback. Yes, because that was my first time to Asia. Yeah, my first time abroad.
on the opposite side of the world to Asia, China at that. So when I left, he's like, he calls me Kettelene. He's like, Kettelene, you understand that you are a minority within a minority. And I was just like, huh? It didn't make sense at the time.
Yeah.
And then I remember calling him like 6 months into being in China. I was like, the struggle's real. My hair is falling out. I know what to do. You know, it's things like that. And just the food, I was getting sick a lot. Just the transitioning. You know, you go in with this excitement. And then, you know, you're a black chick. Your hair starts falling out, not realizing it's just, you just need to change your shower filter because the water there is so coarse. Like little things like that where it's like starting to irritate. My skin was weird. And you know, black don't crack. So my blackness was cracking. I was like, I had to put lotion on multiple times a day. I was like, what is going on? So little things like that, I was frustrated. Going in there, I was like, if anything, I felt more of a minority than anything. And I remember praying and then calling him and be like, hey, like, I'm really struggling. He's like, remember what I told you before you left? He's like, yeah. He's like, you're a Christian woman, black, educated, and Haitian background. He's like, tell me who you can find around the world with your background. And I just sat there and I was like, whoa. He's like, you're built different. You're created uniquely different. You have to approach things differently too. You have to change your mindset. It was like I had an identity crisis. At that moment, I realized, I was like, I'm living in China. Like, how did I get here? How did I, you know, like I got here, I'm an educator, I'm Haitian, I have a master's degree. And at the same time, you know, I was teaching and then my principal approaches me. She's like, hey, I noticed you really love to learn. Do you want to run the English department? And I'm just like, eh? I was like, what? I'll think about it. I'll pray about it. And then I got approached. Like, hey, how do you feel? I see you had a background in sports. You said you love sports. We're looking for a volleyball coach. And I'm just like, for what? He was like, the boys volleyball team. I was like, nah, I'll pass. And then afterwards, I was bored at home. I was like, let me just do this volleyball thing. Ended up winning like 3 championships. Wow. 2 with the boys, 1 with the girls. Nice. Then I ended up on Chinese television winning the best teacher in Chiao, then the best teacher in Suzhou province. Whoa. And was like on like Chinese television, got my stuff published, a picture of me on a mountain somewhere in China. And I remember like getting a WeChat message like, I see you. And it was like my neighbor. I was like, this is creepy. I was like, dude, you don't see me. Like I'm in my apartment. He's like, no, I see you on the roof. And I was like, on the roof? Because, you know, translation is bad in China. So then he takes a picture. I was like, yo, that's me. And I was actually like, you know, featured on a mountain. And I was just sitting there crazy. Again, identity crisis. I was like, it's like I was having like an outer body experience. Towards my 2nd year in China, I was sitting there going like, how did this immigrant child, first of 8, end up in China? Having won all these awards, I really couldn't identify who I had become and transform. Everything happened at me and to me, but not through me. And I sat back and wondered how many series of events in my life have I gone through and look back and go, what the flip just happened to me? So I learned to slow down now to kind of like, and that's why I brought the topic up. I was just like, yo, like, I think I need to do a identity check. And so that's why I also wanted to do the topic, because I think we all go through a season in our lives where we just miss it. And then we go and we start to wonder like, okay, why do I do what I do? Why am I an educator? Like, why am I still following Christ? I had to sit down and kind of journal out my life's journey. It's called Clifton Pathfinders. It's like a whole process of just your life and processing things, finding trauma, finding different things that has occurred to you over the years that redefined you. And as I did mine, and then, you know, the trauma had to do like a little pink marker. I was like, I got a lot of trauma, bro.
Why is it so pink?
Why is it so? And I was just like, whoa. And then it's like life-changing decisions. I was like, a little lot too. And I really sat back. It was like 2 years ago that we did it. And I was just like, I got to go back and check these things. Because part of the decisions I make and part of who you become, like, innately have been put in you, not because, you know, it's just happen. Sometimes it's just being your product of your environment, of the words that you hear daily, of the people you encounter with, whether they be toxic or not. I really learned to be intentional about my inner circle, about where I position myself in my workplace, in my relationships, because I realize all of that as I'm interacting with others or just being a part of an event, it's all reshaping my identity. It's all reshaping of who I am at that moment and becoming.
Right.
So I learned to be intentional, not to like put a distance between people, but kind of like to let me know, okay, Kay, is this who you want to be in 5 years?
Yeah.
It's a way of not getting control, but at least having the ability to know this is a direction I want to go in with my life, and this is how I want to make sure that whoever I'm going to encounter, this is a version of me I want them to encounter.
Right, yeah. And if you're on the right path, the right trajectory, right?
Yeah.
Because I feel like the danger is some people lose their way and then, you know, like you completely veered off and you've gone to a completely different direction. And it honestly, it's just like they say, like to move a big, you know, ship or whatever, it just takes that small propel at the back, like small adjustment, and then you end up in a completely different place. So it is good to kind of take inventory time to time again to make sure we're going on the right path. And I think it's not as important how fast we get there as it is the direction that we're going towards. So that's cool to hear that you're also on that path and you're finding your way. But just for those who, probably some of the audience that didn't watch the last episode and don't really know maybe your timeline or, you know, your background, can you quickly give us again a brief, like what happened from childhood to how you ended up here in Taiwan now?
Yeah, so I was born in Haiti, off the coast of Haiti called Caimite. And then from there, my parents fled the country. We ended up in Guantanamo, Cuba. There we were processed and sent, and the asylum was granted. And we lived in Homestead, Florida for quite some time before I myself transitioned out of my mom's. That's where I got saved. I met my pastor there. It's young as 7. I think that's the first time. 7, 8 years old, maybe. Probably have been 9. I remember looking at him like, what's this man staring at me for? And so he ended up like coming over and asking my mom to take us to church. And I was like, I'm not going to church. That's my time to sleep and watch cartoons. And he's like, he gave me candy, mint candy. He's like, if you come, I'll give you more. I was like, Mom, I'm going to church. I was 9. Candy convinced me. So that was another thing. And I found Christ there. Christian camp, BBS. I ended up being at that church, until almost in my 20s, almost mid-20s. And so I went into education right after. Because it was just naturally in me. And so in education, but I had definitely ran away from it for quite some time. My foundation for my identity has always been God at a very young age, to which that helped me. The transitions and the identity crisis I had, they really helped me remind myself of what I needed to keep in mind, like keeping... There's this saying that says there's beauty in simplicity. God is very simple. And so I found myself just going back to the basics of things. And so throughout my lifetime, I've always found a core group of like 7 people that have always been there for me. That keep me in check emotionally, spiritually, and professionally. And so it's always important as to have those people close to you to do life, to remind you, hey, like you're going stupid again. Like fix yourself. Like that's not you. Like I know you would never do this. Is it easy? No. Actually, sometimes like you know not to call that person because you know they'll go in on you. What they're gonna say. So when I find myself there, I'll call that person knowing I need to hear that. So that's a lot of the journey of identity for me. And that's the path to growth, I think. And growing, it doesn't mean you have to do it by yourself. I think that's what's great about like having community as such, that you have people to lean on and support you and to call you out, because there's definitely times when we're like, I'm not quite doing so well, and they kind of need to give you that nudge, you know? So can you also maybe touch on how has your identity changed, let's say in the different phases of your life, like from childhood to a teen to now a young adult and then an adult, you know, and how has that all changed? I think as a child, I was parentified. Because I'm the first of 8, a lot of the responsibilities and expectations that needed to be met fell on me. With that being said, it trickled into my time in high school. My father was, like I said, he was an educator. He went into middle school, 7th grade, going into 8th grade, and changed all my classes to honors. Well, I started to play around a lot too. I never thought I was very smart. I just thought that was normal to just grasp information very fast. I was just like, everybody's like this.
Like, why is everybody so dumb around me?
I was like, I didn't even call everybody dumb. I was just like, I finished first. And then I put my head down and go to sleep. And then so they would document that I would go to sleep in class, but then my grades were good.
Yeah.
So my dad went to the school. It was like he just changed my whole schedule. So I ended up in honors and AP classes. That's why I got all those degrees, because I actually AP'd most of myself out of high school. Yeah. By 12th grade, I was like twirling my fingers. I had like 2 classes, and then my cousin would pick me up and we'd go to the beach. Wow. I ended up with like 5,000 hours of community service, because I did AYSO soccer, Horses for Handicap. Like I said, I love the marginalized and community service. And then I did the radio show, which we reached out to the marginalized. We danced for certain groups and raised funds and fundraising for, especially like when Haiti had the earthquake. We did fundraising for that. Later on, I would always just plug myself into community organizations that were non-for-profits. It was always in my DNA, but I think it came to watching my parents struggle, watching them have to go to the fields at 6 a.m. and pick beans to make sure that our needs were met. I mean, we're on government assistance at the time, which did help. But watching your parents go through that, and also it was hard to be Haitian. Blacks did not like Haitians, and it was really weird because white people didn't understand why they didn't like us, because we're all black.
To them,
so I got made fun of a lot. I got my hair pulled because they thought it was fake. Because most Haitians, they expect to have short hair, to be dingy. My mom dressed us up very nice. Yeah. People call me the matching queen. I'm like, she created this. She would make us sure that we were dressed so nice. Like when you were talking about, you have to respect your parents for wanting you to have a better education. Like my mom pushed that I wouldn't get picked on. So it would be hours of like hot combing my hair to make sure it's nice and being presentable. And the education entailed that too. Right. Like, and we were taught to respect. Yeah. Like you respect your elders. I mean, I got in trouble one time for not wanting to kiss one of my aunts because I felt like her breath was just... And my mom was like, kiss her. And I'm just like, no, like her breath, ma. But you had to kiss every auntie at a gathering.
Is that a
It's a cultural thing? Yeah. The whole, and we're from French.
Oh,
like
fair.
And especially if it's family members that are older. So showing respect. And so like I found myself in high school, like by then I had an identity crisis. It was like, you got to be Haitian, but American too.
That's right.
And so I had to, but I'm black. And then the way I look, they would think like, oh, you're black. And I'm like, no, I'm Haitian. Oh, you are? And it's just like...
So even there's not
it's like, you don't look like it.
Yeah,
it's like, you don't look like it. It's like, what is that? Your hair is so long, though. I'm just like, okay. Stereotype. So I had to fight that in high school. Yeah. And it was very hard. The people were like, did you date? I was like, I punched. Because I would literally find myself... like at a struggle because most of the Haitian boys were related to me. So then the American boys, if you did try to date them, it was hard because the American girls felt like you were taking away from them. So I remember people saying that about, blacks versus whites. And I was just like, try being black and feeling like they're being taken away from a black. It was a weird dynamic for me. It was very hard to find somebody to relate to because it's just like, they don't like me because I'm Haitian. Right. And they're like, but y'all black. And it's like, yeah, but I'm Haitian. So I found in high school, I struggled the most with my identity. Especially the fact that I was a Christian Haitian at that. And then I had like my father and my mom had separated. So my mom depended a lot on me and for certain things, while my father was putting the pressure of staying in school, meeting the cultural norms, making sure you stay smart. So although I balanced it out well and it looked good on the outside, it did cause some identity crisis in my 20s. For sure. To which I became a workaholic. Like I was in WA, Workaholic Anonymous. Like I would work and I used that level of how much I worked and how much I was seen to be a part of my identity.
That's your identity.
It stemmed from when I said I had 60% gains of reading. I would stay hours. The book I wrote, Motivational, is based on the strategy I used to get my students to read. Wow. And so I just got up one night. I was halfway asleep. I was like, yo, I want to write a book. My sister was like, what? I was like, I'm going to write a book. So I wrote a book. I mean, and it worked. But I wrote that book in an identity crisis. Like I found myself literally trying to figure out what am I as an educator? Like, what am I doing? Because I felt like I was just going through the motions of things. And so I wrote the book to kind of even inspire me to like, what is your goal now? Okay, like you became an educator. what kind of educator do you want to become?
Right.
And so, like I said, I'm a go-getter.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm going to be the best educator I can be.
Right.
So I just delve into like different professional developments, different strategies. My identity as an educator was shaped then.
Yes.
And then moving abroad, I would say my identity shifted big time because something really bad happened in China where I was assaulted by my security guard. And I found myself as a woman questioning myself, like, should I have dressed that way? Should I have said this? Should I have? And I remember going to the police station and like literally having to like do a lineup of this individual that attacked me in my own home. And I remember sitting there, I'm like, thank God my brothers taught me how to fight and I fought back.
Yeah.
But I didn't realize the trauma of that, of really sitting back and saying to yourself, like, as a woman, like, what do you do to protect yourself?
Right.
And I never thought I would be in a situation like that because a lot of people are like, hey, you're so pretty. I'm just like, I'm all right. You know, it's like, no, your personality and everything, you're approachable, da, da, da. And I found myself, my identity is like, don't be so friendly. And I even questioned God. I was like, you sent me to this country. This has happened to me. I did, you know, my mentor who's studied, who's, you know, PhD in psychology, she helped me through it with prayer and everything and support of family. I was able to assimilate back into just finding myself. Yeah. And when you go through something like that, that trauma does something in your identity that you start become self-aware of how life in a split second
can
changes you
and it's so fragile.
Your mind's, and it's very fragile. To where I had to sit back and I had to tell myself, okay, you can either choose to be a victim or a victor.
Yeah.
There's two V's.
Yeah.
Which path will you take?
Right.
And I remember sitting in the dark, shaking. I had put even a plank. I'm on the 31st floor in China. And I put a plank just because I just was afraid I'd ever be attacked again. And I would be very careful. Like at night, like when I came to Taiwan, like literally in the dark, I'm just kind of like, you know, certain things that you start to do that's different. And I was like, this is now my identity.
Right.
And, you know, I shared the story with my students. I remember one year, and I had a young lady approach me, and she's like, Ms.K, can I talk to you? And I was like, was that easy to share? I said, no, it wasn't. And I was like, but I felt like I had prayed about it, and God put it on my heart to share it with that young lady, only to realize she had been in a situation like that too. Wow. And she opened up to me, and she's like, what do I do from here? I was like, first of all, can I hug you? And I hugged her, and she's like, I was like, it's real. It happened to you. Yeah. And it's okay. And I remember her looking, she's like, for a long time, I just thought it didn't happen to me because things like that don't happen to people like me. Right. And I was like, that's what I thought too. Yeah. And I remember when that happened, I thought, why did this happen to me? But for such a time as that, if I was able to be light in darkness for that young girl, I was like, okay, God, I understand it happened to me, but it didn't happen through me. Yeah. I can choose. And I remember thinking, when will I get over this? When will I feel like, you know how you see those movies and they like,
this is
coming to moment, like,
oh, everything's so good and dandy.
Yeah. And it wasn't that moment. I felt like, okay, there's significance to what happened. But at the same time, it also, for me, it was a time that I realized that continuously I would have to choose victory. Yes. I had to choose victory. People think when something like that happens to you, you get over it, and it doesn't. But it's true.
Like it's just like a switch.
Yeah, it's a switch. And it'll be little things that I'll be like, you know, shifting. And people ask me all the time, do you date? I was like, no, I don't date. Not really. I befriend people, and then I'm very cautious. And they're like, what is dating like in Asia? I was just like, I got my eyebrow stroked once, and they're like, what? And I kid you not. This was an identity crisis for me, dating in Asia. It was a Nigerian guy. Yeah. Okay. I'll never forget, we're in Nanjing Fuxing, right across from Sephora. There's a pizza place there. And the dude comes, and I just got my eyebrows on. I mean, it was popping. It was nice. Okay. And then I saw him like reaching over with his finger.
Wait,
and I'm
you
like,
don't know this guy?
No, we met on WeChat. His brother introduced us. He's like, can I meet up with you?
So you chat a little bit.
Okay, and I was like, okay, let's meet up.
And the first thing he does?
Well, first he said hello, but then he was staring at me. And then I was just kind of like, and there was this two couples sitting next to us. And it was like a mating ritual. It's like two black people, but they were watching pretty much. And then he reaches over, and I'm in my head, I'm like, what is happening? And I could wait, like full blown, like just, and I was like, and I was like appalled. I was like, what are you doing? And he's like, your eyebrows are so shiny. And I was like,
Do I get to pet your eyebrow now?
No. But I mean, like stuff like that. I was thinking, I was like,
so odd.
Can I ever date in Asia again? Yeah. Like it's like, why don't you date? I was like, well, got my eyebrows stroked.
Yeah, people stroke my
Yes, and I remember the guy going, "You what?" I was like, this guy stroked my eyebrows, and it was just the weirdest thing. So I remember going back. My mom's like, "You're not married?" I was like, "No, I got my eyebrows stroked."
I got that checked.
And she's like, "Oh, it was strange." I was like, no, not all guys are like that." But I learned, I learned very quickly. Like, okay, pray about it.
Yes.
I was like, I didn't pray before I left. So I'm very cautious. Like a lot of the friends that I have was like, will you date? I was like, not really, as much as like, I know dating someone will reshape one's identity.
Yes.
So I do befriend guys, we become friends, we get close, and we do life together before I proceed to the next step. So things like that, even when that event happened, I put it on hold. And then I had to really be like, okay, putting a fence up not only protects you, but also keeps the good out too. So I had to learn to slowly open that door. So a lot of that reshaped my way of dating, my way of perceiving certain people, and also being able to apply and show grace and mercy towards others. It's just like, just because this person did this to you doesn't mean everybody that looks like that or smells like that, or whatever. Like you said, it's little triggers.
Right.
So a big part, when I thought about sharing this, I was like, do I want to share? That's kind of deep,
Yeah.
But I felt led to, because so whoever's listening out there, whether it be a woman, whoever that ever felt violated, that ever felt like they couldn't see themselves anymore, like it's murky and just dirty and just like rough. It's a season of your life that you have to sit back and find your identity. And part of that had to be where I had close people to me, my family, that reached out, that provided support. Of course, my Haitian family was like, "You're not going back to China." Oh, no. To which I was like, I'm going to trust God.
Yes.
And I came back, not to say that, I'm strong and I did it all by myself, as much as like, greater is he that is in me than he that is in this world. And so with his strength, I was able to be able to get over that in a sense that I can talk about it now. I can share my testimony with others and tell them like, it's not easy. It's going to be some dark phases. It's going to be times where you have to pick victory over victim. But once you do, time and time again, somebody is touched by your story. Somebody's identity is found again. And so I found myself in a season, even in my classroom, when I have to share it, when we talk about the Holocaust and genocides around the world, and they talk about, what they did to the women during that time of even Japanese invasion here, in the whole 228, which just passed. I tell them, I do a text to self-connection is what I call it. And I tell them my story. And a lot of my students are like, Ms.K, I would never think that happened to you. I was like, most victims don't look like what happened to them. And that's why you have to respect other people's identity and their walk and what you say, and even your actions towards them, because you don't know their story. So that's my identity. That's part of my identity.
That is absolutely crazy, because again, like, I've never heard that story from you. And so really, first I want to say, like, so sorry, that like, that's have happened to you, and there's just nothing to justify the actions of those behaviors. It's intolerable. But again, it's how amazing to witness the power of, like turning something that's so bad and tragic into something that becomes your victory story. And I think like grateful again. Thank you for sharing that out here, because it's not easy to be vulnerable. And I think a lot of times people connect vulnerability with weakness, and it's actually your strength when we can actually put that out. And I think that's the story that can honestly, like you said, touch that little girl's life or one of the viewers that's listening. And so, I commend you for, your courage and your braveness for sharing that. Thank you for your time, because I feel like with this, usually like I'm asking questions and but like I just had to ask you one, and then you give us all the goods. So thank you so much for talking to us about identity, and really hope that you continue to do good work, because I know you mentioned to us that you want to focus on the minority aspect. And so wherever that journey might take you in the future, I know that you're going to do great, because again, you exude sort of like, love and enthusiasm and motivation. And so that's really why I kind of wanted to have you on here today. So we thank you so much for sharing your story, and I pray and wish you everything all the best for the future.
Thank you. And it was a pleasure coming on. I mean, I found my peoples. Part of my DNA is SALT Corps and Bread of Life International Church. And I, at Kang Chiao, my admin family there, really provide support. And having met you, and it was so weirdly, I kind of like IG stalked you a little bit after my roommate Bridget showed me your picture and stuff like that. And so I was like, oh, I want to go to the beach. And I remember texting you, and you were so warm and welcome. It's like, yeah, who are you? And I was like, sorry to be stalking you, but your pictures are awesome. I remember we became friends. And like 2-3 years later at the beach cleanup, we met up again. I was like, yo, you're the beach man. You're that guy. So the SALT Corps team really allowed me to open my wings in that way to be able to continue to do the good works that I believe that I'm called to do to the marginalized. And I like what you said about the whole fact that I had to learn that something like that, it doesn't make you weaker to be brave. So for those out there listening, whatever your calling is or whatever it is, it's scary. Yeah. It's scary and it's hard to be able to be open and vulnerable. Absolutely. But I can tell you, when you do, the strength that comes out of that and the inspiration that you can spread to others is something that money can never buy. Right. And it's a part of my identity and DNA to be able to reach out and to touch the hearts of others. And I feel like I have listened to several of your podcasts. I was like, this is some deep stuff. I remember I texted, I was like, yo, this is deep. So even this show, listening to it is something for myself, even, has been really whoa, this is some good conversation that really stimulates the mind, but also reshapes one's heart too. Right. So I think you guys are doing an awesome job here. I enjoyed the conversation. Yeah. Thank you so much. Kind of, I talked a little bit too much. No, you're good. You're the guest. I need you to speak. So yeah, it was amazing. I think I'll leave our audience with this last saying that our test becomes our testimony, right? And it's very common in our Christian circles, but I think that phrase is so true. Every single one of us will go through tests, but how can we turn that test into our testimony? And so you're a living proof right here in front of us. And so thank you for your time again. And for those of you who haven't seen the last episode, be sure to tune into our last episode with Ms.K. We talked about her teaching aspect, and today we've covered the identity portion. And so we wish you, again, everything of the best. And until next time, we will see you. Bye-bye.